You should be a monster. You know, because everyone says, well, you should be harmless, virtuous. You shouldn't do anyone any harm. You should sheath your competitive instinct. You shouldn't try to win. You know, you don't want to be too aggressive. You don't want to be too assertive. You want to take a back seat and all of that. Wrong. You should be a monster, an absolute monster, and then you should learn how to control it.
You know, it should go without saying that life definitely has its share of hardships. You may even say categorically that much of your life is nothing but a pit hole of suffering. However, what if you tried not to make it any worse than it already is? Is whatever you are facing a lot of suffering? For example, a person who has cancer would be suffering a lot. However, they can't really claim that if only they had done something differently, they wouldn't have the disease. You could still question yourself if something is actually required while people, or you yourself, are tormenting you. Was this necessary to be added to my life's woes? We, humans, get discouraged by that. So even if you are simply experiencing inevitable sorrow rather than self-inflicted unhappiness, perhaps you might be able to manage that. And as you well know, you could keep on living. You might be able to handle it without developing a permanently cold nature. Thus, indeed life is a pit hole of suffering and might not have a higher purpose. This could feel true especially when you're feeling blue, yet it still raises the question of how great you could make of something if you didn't want to make it worse. It might be bad, but at least it's not hell, right? That would be the worst case scenario in the worst case scenario of all imaginable universes. Take another example. Your mother died. That's definitely tragic. But imagine if, while your mother is lying on her deathbed, your family gets into a clash, something you can't get out of. This is how a tragedy is different from hell. A tragedy over tragedy over tragedy that you can't move on from. The first situation could be bearable after time passes, and could even bring you closer to your sibling. However, no one can tolerate the second scenario. Mostly tragedy brings out the worst in people. One is under a lot of